The 80s had The General. The 90s had John Gilligan. In the noughties, it was the reign of Martin Marlowe Hyland. His was a familiar path with success and power, and then the recklessness. He had to go, because with him, an innocent young man doing an honest day's work died. Crime World presents Caught in the Crossfire, the unsolved murders of coke kingpin Marlowe Hyland and innocent Anthony Campbell. Available now on all podcast platforms. Roisin, welcome aboard the Crime World, the good ship Crime World. We want to talk to you today about Blue Lights, this series that seems to be so popular in the North. I've been reading a lot about it.
Yes.
It's interesting that it's been getting such positive reviews. So I suppose start with telling us what's it about, what's happened in the first two series, and why it's gone down so well.
Okay, so started last year. The first series followed for kind of our a group of rookie PSNI officers on the sort of first few months coming out of training. The storyline was set in West Belfast, so it was sort of concentrating on sort of a crime lord who was clearly a former IRA, who, okay, bit of a spoiler alert, you become aware that he's being run by the security services here. So, he's been run by government agents here.
Yes.
So that's the whole, it's, the ordinary cops on the ground versus the security services who become known as the sneaky beakies.
Right.
So it's, set in West Belfast. It was clearly that, concentrating on that sort of the Republican side of the fence. And series 2 moves to East Belfast, so it's loyalists, or so it'll be sort of Protestant paramilitaries for anyone who's not from here. And how the effect they have on the community, how a new guy comes into town and wants to take over. And again, about how the police deal with that with, conventional policing methods and unconventional policing methods where, they want to, make life easier for themselves by working with these guys behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's interesting they should tackle aspects like that, including, I suppose, that age-old situation where the police would be, in many ways, investigating in the dark, not understanding that some of these characters are protection because they're touts.
Oh, absolutely. But sure, again, for anybody who's not from here, that's Northern Ireland for you. Do you know what I mean? There was the Stevens inquiry a couple of years ago in the loyalist paramilitaries, and it was something like 210 loyalist paramilitaries. There were only 3 who were not informants.
Right.
Put your hands up if you're not an informant. That's how deeply embedded the whole culture of informants and paid, collaborative, whatever word you want to use, how much it's a part of the troubles here.
And obviously, look, this is sort of almost your love-hate, I think. Love-hate started down here. There was a certain realism to it that I think captured the imagination of the public. And while there was some criticism, it was largely accepted as a very good reflection of what was going on in the underworld. And I think it's very difficult for these drama series to actually hit those right notes. But this one definitely seems to have done that.
Yes. Well, it's done in a number of ways. There are so many scenes in it. We just think that is so uncannily accurate as a dramatic, reinvention of our society. One of the things they did was there's a group up here called Wave Trauma Centre, which works with troubles victims. So they worked with Wave to reflect how, what those people's experiences are, where they've been left behind. There's been no investigation. They feel cast adrift. The thing that I love about Blue Lights is the character who is the saddest in it. The troubles victim was called Happy. That's a very Belfast sense of humour. Wave has thanked them for working with them and for reflecting how, what people's experiences are. And the other thing that the second series has also reflected was, as of the beginning of May in Northern Ireland, we now have the Troubles Legacy Act, where there will be no more investigations of any troubles-related deaths. There will be no police investigations. There will be no inquests. There will be no civil actions. Everything is being pushed on to a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And that's caused huge hurt. It's one of the few things that really united all of the political parties in Northern Ireland. You normally hate each other. Everybody has agreed that is a terrible thing to do. And the second series of Blue Lights, and Happy Kelly's storyline reflects that he's never going to find out what the truth is. Nobody will ever investigate what happened in his tiny story. And that's a reflection of everybody else's story up here.
And how does that manifest itself within the drama? How is he portrayed, and what sort of, how does that affect him on a day-to-day basis? I suppose feeling like what you're describing there is you're just feeling like a drop in an ocean, that it doesn't, while what happened to you is so enormous and has affected your life to such an extent and others, that you're just feeling so tiny and, insignificant.
Yes, it is beautifully played. It's a guy from up here called Paddy Jenkins. We would know him more as a comedy actor. But he's on the anniversary of it. He's lost his father and his brother in a bomb in the early 70s, for which he'd been responsible because he wanted to go to the chip shop where the bomb was planted. He on the anniversary, he goes out and gets into public fights rather than be on his own because he can't cope on his own. So that's in the first series. In the second series, he forms a relationship with a former policeman who's now a solicitor, and she wants to get to the bottom of what happened to him and to his family, and she enlists the help of a special branch officer who worked behind the scenes running informants in the 70s, and the whole thing is closed down. It's just not the powers that be do not want an investigation going anywhere. Mm-hmm. So that reflects how all Trouble's investigations have now ended. That's just it.
Yeah. And is it difficult for drama to get the right note, to hit the right note with the North, which is such a complex society, really? It's an ordinary society in so many ways, but it is very complex, and it has such an overbearing amount of trauma compared to certainly the rest of this island and probably the UK.
Absolutely. I think they have as well, because it reflects that, life is not black and white. There's a beautiful speech at the end of the second series, we won't give away, but it's a guy explaining his past and why, we think he's a good guy, but he thinks he's a bad guy. And it is absolutely beautifully done in terms of explaining, people here did terrible things and have had to live with them. And it's not black and white. Light is very nuanced up here. So people who did terrible things in the past now want to make amends for the future. So, it does reflect that. I think it's very well done. In terms of that, I mean, there are so many other things that it reflects as well. One of them is the grooming of young people here, which is just when somebody says grooming, you think of sexual offences, but up here it's paramilitaries. So there's a storyline that runs through the second series where the guy's trying to kind of get his young nephew into crime, basically. It's sort of. And, initially you sort of think, well, for somebody looking at that from the outside, you think, God, that's really unrealistic. But it's absolutely true. I mean, I was looking up, there was a couple of examples here. Last Easter, Republican paramilitaries in Derry had 12-year-olds throwing bricks at the police. And those are kids that they've been groomed to go and do that. I mean, they don't have a political vote in their body, but a big man telling them we don't like the police going through bricks at them. And there was another example was 2021 in West Belfast, where there was a riot after a demonstration about Brexit, post-Brexit trade arrangements in Northern Ireland, which is snoringly boring, Mm-hmm. But there was a riot afterwards, and you had these kids, 16-year-olds, throwing bricks and petrol bombs at the police as well. And it was, it came out afterwards at a parliamentary inquiry that if those kids agreed to take part in that riot, they got 80 quid taken off their loyalist paramilitary drug debts. So those kids are being groomed for paramilitary activity, and that's the series really well reflected that.
So it follows the progress of the careers of three recruits, I suppose, Grace, Annie and Tommy. Are they all local actors, or if not, have they some sort of a connection to the North that allows them play these roles?
Grace is English. She's played by an English actress. The other two younger actors are from here. I mean, that's the other thing that it's done really well.
Shane Brooke, I think, is Grace, yes. And then you've Catherine Devlin is Annie, and Nathan Braniff Tommy.
Yeah. So, and the two younger ones, they're actors. It's a big role. But the one thing that really grates with people up here, I mean, I know the people outside Northern Ireland, we all sound a bit but it really grates when you've got somebody in a role who's got the wrong accent for it. You know what I mean? When you've got Marjorie from North Down, who sounds much too posh to be living in East Belfast and in a ghetto. So they've got that right. All the people have the appropriate accents as well. So, you accept that Grace is English, so that's fine. She's an English accent. And the two younger actors are so good at it. Martin McCann, who is Grace's love interest, and also a policeman, is very good. He's from West Belfast. So, totally natural, really strong part of the cast as well.
I think it's sort of funny enough. I think sometimes that the casting is a secondary element to a good drama. Obviously, the writing is at the heart of it. And if you have writers who really throw themselves into trying to reflect the society, and that they're working for an audience, sometimes when people are writing for the American audience, they'll write in a completely different way. It has to be much more dramatised, much more hammy, nearly, the acting. And I think at times when there's these sort of co-pros between like two completely different parts of the world, like Australia and Ireland, for example, or the UK and Canada, sometimes it can go wrong because you're trying to facilitate two different cultures, really. And it's probably wrong in both territories a lot of the time, but the writing is really key to it. And clearly these writers have thrown themselves into all those elements we've talked about, including the trauma centre. They've gone there and they've tried to learn how to reflect this properly.
I mean, it must be a very difficult line to kind of tread because, it's about Northern Ireland. It's set here. Your primary audience is here, but it also has to sell around the world. So they must have to tread a really fine line where even, I mean, in series 2, the bar is called the Loyal Bar. And that's mad. No bar here would be called that. But I understand that the idea is to get to an international audience that is, people are loyal to the Crown, or they are loyal. And you'd wonder as well how many people outside of Northern Ireland understand what a loyalist is, or understand what a Republican is, So it must be very difficult to, keep that kind of local interest and keep it true to here while also appealing to an international audience, But there was one absolutely brilliant detail I thought in this series where a young woman is talking about being the victim of a loan shark. That's clearly a loyalist paramilitary loan shark. And she says, he approached me at the food bank. And then I borrowed £900 and I paid him back £2,000. And that is just spot on. We heard so many stories in the paper about people who go to food banks clearly because they are short of money. And there are these guys in paramilitaries there who are prepared to exploit them and take advantage of them and then fleece them for money. So, I thought that was a really kind of pertinent, important detail in it as well.
Is a food bank run there by charities or is it a government service?
No. It's run by a UK charity called the Trussell Trust. Runs the food banks here. Yeah.
So in your opinion then, can you point to other dramas that really haven't worked, that have kind of, fallen on their face really because they're trying to depict a place that they haven't, got an understanding of? And does this stand out because it's being so universally accepted up there?
I don't know if I can think of one that doesn't work. I mean, it was funny watching Line of Duty, which was filmed here, but it wasn't set here.
Yes.
Because you do become, maybe you do it as well in Dublin, you become obsessed with the background.
Yes.
You can't clearly lose track of what's going on in the stream. You go, oh, look, well, there's that pub, and let's go there. That looks lovely.
That's it.
There was a couple of times with that in Line of Duty where, they would start a scene, a shootout or whatever in the city centre, and then the next shot that would be 2 miles away. You'd be going, geez, those boys can run, you know.
Yeah.
Where he started off. I mean, I think it's. I mean, there is another drama there's another police drama that's also shot here called Hope Street, which couldn't be more different. You know, it's so cozy and sun-dappled and beautiful, and you know that there has never been a riot in Hope Street, nor will there ever be. But it's also a murder capital, you know.
Right.
So it's that kind of, it's like Death in Paradise in Northern Ireland, you know, which gets uncannily good weather most of the time. So you know that appeals to a completely different audience. But you know, and it's also a police drama set here, but it's entirely different. You know, there are no paramilitaries in Hope Street below. You know, like.
So there's going to be filming for the 3rd series starting pretty soon.
Yeah.
Is that a big deal when that happens, or does it happen pretty discreetly?
We're so blasé about it up here, you know. Going off, there's Brad Pitt going past. Leave him alone there, you know.
You're well used to the cameras anyway, that's for sure.
Oh, there's loads of them. Yeah. Like, round the corner from me, there was one. Was it Dalgleish been filmed a couple of weeks ago? I had line of duty up the street for its last series, you know. You just kind of get on with it, really, you know.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see where it goes, though, because, you know, first series was Republican paramilitaries, second series was Loyalist paramilitaries. Well, where do you go with the 3rd series, you know? Are you doing kind of middle ground alliance party politics here, or, you know, I don't know where it goes, but there's so much criminality up here.
Interestingly, you should say that, because we often speak on this podcast about the sort of the drug gangs in the north and how really they are a mulch now of both Republican and Loyalist people who would have maybe a generation ago sworn enemies, never ever would they work together, whereas actually a lot of the drug gangs are just a complete mix. So perhaps that's somewhere that they can...
Isn't it touching cross-community, you know, criminality that the Good Friday Agreement lives? Yeah. But we've got all sorts. Apparently, there've been Russians here for a while as well. They could still well be here. Who knows? You know.
Who knows?
Yeah. You know, we never met a crime we didn't like. You know.
And what about the sort of the film industry up there? How is it doing? Is it thriving? By all accounts, from what you're saying, there's a lot of filming. It seems to be a good industry.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's gone from, you know, 30 years ago, if somebody said to you there were going to be films made here, you would have laughed at them, you know, unless they were Cal and they were about the Troubles. But no, now there's everything. I mean, I think but largely because we're cheap, you know, and we know we're cheap. But there's loads of really highly trained film crew up here who've worked on everything. And because Northern Ireland's so small as well, do you know what I mean? Nicole Kidman was it The Viking up here? You know, an hour and a half from Belfast, and you could be in Iceland, you know, and you're up on the north coast. And then there's a castle that way, and there's a gritty city centre that way. So, you know, it has everything, and it's all within a very small distance. And we're quite cool about people filming anywhere. So there's none of that. You need a permit, or you know, we don't want you to close that street off. You know. Yeah,
you're good with all that. There seems to me to be some sort of it's a time, I think, for Northern Ireland, for stories, for those traumas that we've spoken about that people have been through. It's like as if it's the right time for them to speak, and I find there's a huge amount of stories being told now that people are very open to telling stories. Like a lot of the time, when I'm up and I'm listening to something, I am left with my jaw on the ground. These stories are coming out which are just utterly, you know, astonishing, that people have lived through what they have, that they've suffered what they have, that they have seen no justice for what's happened to them. And yet they've survived, and some of them have forgiven, some of them are angry. There's all those sort of human emotions in it, but it's like as if it's Northern Ireland's time now. It's the people's time to tell what's happened to them.
Yeah. And I suppose it depends on the family as well. Some people want to forget. Some people want to know every detail. You know, they're you know, it depends on how you are, and I suppose what, you know, how you're feeling now. That this on the run up to the first amount of the Troubles legacy bill was particularly horrendous here for several families, when the inquests, which had been delayed for decades, finally got going. the coroners were given information which was heavily redacted, but they were able to give the families the gist of what was in it about murders of loved ones. And I mean, there was one particular murder where the coroner was able to tell the family that there were 29 informers involved in the murder. And, clearly the security services had known it was going to happen and allowed it to go ahead. But that inquest has now been closed down because of the Troubles legacy bill. So, there are stories like that which will probably never be told, where people will never get to the bottom of what happened and why it happened. We've had with the Operation Canova into an agent up here called Steak Knife, who was at the heart of the IRA, who was responsible for, they reckon, at least 40 murders of informers or alleged informers within the IRA, who was one of the prized agents for the security services here. And the argument had always been, and it's an argument that's also made in Blue Lights, that these agents saved more lives than they cost. But Operation Canova, which cost 40 million quid and went on for 7 years, found that certainly in this case, in Steak Knife's case, that wasn't the case at all. If he saved, the number of lives that he saved was probably in single figures. So you think, well, was it worth it? Why was that allowed to happen? Why was he allowed to kill so many people? Because he wasn't saving too many people. So, all of that is still.
And as human beings, we have to reflect on these things at the passage of time, and we have to consider them. And I think sometimes, obviously, TV film is such a powerful medium that a drama, a sort of fictional type story told to us visually, can be the most powerful of all to make us sort of reflect and talk and debate on things.
Absolutely. I mean, I do think that's the success of Blue Lights. It's got an awful lot of that across in 6 hours of drama and two series. Nobody's going to sit and watch 6 hours of news about Northern Ireland because the first thing they're going to do is hit the remote to change the channel when Northern Ireland comes on. So to get out that our story out into the world in any form is it's a really good thing. It's important to us. It's probably not that important to people in other parts of the world, but it was a particularly nasty, violent, blood-soaked little conflict. And as you said, the truth about it is still coming out. So if that can come out in drama, then that's a great way to share that story with people.
For sure. Well, look, we look forward to seeing what the storyline is in the third series, and I believe a fourth one has also been commissioned, which is really good. Yeah. So, Roisin Gorman, thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you, Nicola.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs, and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.